Hi friends, welcome to the Scapegoat Club. My name's Jess, and today I'm going to talk about why I think narcissistic parenting is a real thing and why it goes under our radar. So stay tuned and we're going to talk about it. Hi folks, thanks for being here. My name's Jess. I'm a therapist, I am a personal coach, and I come from a very, very adverse family, very difficult family, and I personally have labeled my parents as being narcissistic. And so I really want to talk to that point because my parents have not been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and to be honest, I don't know that they ever will do. So I'm going to dive into something that I'm going to call narcissistic parenting. And my theory is that someone can be a narcissistic parent, but they wouldn't be diagnosed as a narcissist. So stay tuned. There's a bit about the diagnosis and there's a bit about what we think of about narcissism, but I really think it's super interesting and I think it's so important. So stay with me and we're going to talk about it. So first of all, I want to talk about the current diagnosis we have of narcissism. Narcissism is diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. And it's not going to be a surprise when I say, for most of you who are familiar with narcissism, a lot of people who are narcissists don't get diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And the reason is because they don't think that they have a problem. They think that the problem is with other people and they think that they're okay. And so that's one of the problems with the diagnostic model themselves. And I think that a lot of health professionals will agree with that. To be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, you need to go and see a diagnosing professional, often a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And you will basically answer a questionnaire and then come out with a diagnosis, yes or no. They're looking at shifting this diagnosis from a person ticking the boxes or enough boxes to say, yes, you do have enough to be classed as someone with narcissistic personality disorder, to be classed as a narcissist, you tick enough of the boxes. We're moving from that model to actually it's less of a yes or no to that there's this kind of spectrum of narcissism. Because everybody is a little bit narcissistic. It's a survival mechanism to look out for ourselves once in a while. So to have a little bit of narcissism in us is normal and it's kind of necessary. But it starts to cause problems when basically the narcissism takes precedent over other ways of being able to have relationships with other people and being able to function well in society. And so I believe that the shift is going to be moving towards, rather than a yes or no narcissistic or not narcissistic, it's more of a where are you on the spectrum. But there's another piece that I haven't seen that's been discussed in the healthcare world, and I'm curious, please let me know in the comments if you're in this world and you know more about this, or you have other thoughts as to what I'm talking about, please let me know. Someone is considered narcissistic if they have problems relating to other people and within their close relationships or within their social relationships over a long period of time. And so inbuilt to this idea about what narcissism is this idea that there's this difficulty in relating to others. But again, the narcissist is very different according to who they're with. Narcissists are social chameleons. Because they're all about how they look to other people, they are very adept at changing how they act according to who they're with. An example would be in my family when I used to go on video calls with my parents and they couldn't see when my husband was in the room or not. When it was just them and I, or they didn't know that he was around, they were different people. They became very critical, their faces changed, the conversation was very down. When my husband would walk onto the camera, there was a literal change in posture, there was a change in the mood. My dad would start making jokes, my mum would start smiling a bit more, and it was a palpable shift in who they were according to who was in the conversation. And I get it, because we're social people, we do mirror other people, we do act differently according to who we are around. But narcissists, I think, can take it to absolutely another level. And so this idea of being socially different in different relationships, to me, is very important, and I think is missed in the current diagnosis of narcissism. And for me, it has really big implications for family units. And so my perspective is that when narcissism can basically shift, or how it's shown to the world can shift according to who we're with, then that's going to mean that someone is going to be more narcissistic in relationships where they have more ability, where they have more power in the relationship, where they have more ability to manipulate. I think a lot of you guys would agree, a lot of people who are familiar with narcissism would agree that narcissists will flip their tactics depending on who they're with. And so then it makes so much sense to me that someone who has more of a narcissistic need, an alignment with being more narcissistic, these people are going to be more prominently narcissistic around certain people than other people. So an example might be that someone who's more brash and more alpha and like maybe a bigger person will be more prominent and maybe throw their weight around a little bit more when they're with people who are less dominant and more quiet than when they're in a group of other strong alpha type people. And so you know where I'm going with this. For me, the most obvious place that someone who has narcissistic tendencies to be able to be narcissistic is when they're in a parental role, especially over a young person or a baby. When a person who wants power and control and wants to use another person to be able to fulfill their own needs, then having a child is just the gift. I'm obviously not saying that every parent is narcissistic, absolutely not. I'm also not saying that I think perhaps some people think that they're being narcissistic. They don't go into it thinking, I'm gonna have a baby because I want to control somebody else. But I think that just that power dynamic, that power imbalance in the relationship really opens it up for people to misuse it and abuse it. So someone who is more likely to want validation from other people, to not have the emotional skills, to want power over someone else, to want to feel better about themselves at the expense of other people. What an easy opportunity to do it with a child. And the other thing is that we can do it behind closed doors. That's the difference, say, hopefully between, say, a teacher and a child, or other family members and children, or a boss and a co-worker. Within family units and behind closed doors, a lot of things can happen that the rest of the world don't look at. And so for me, maybe it's just more of an opportunity that someone who is more narcissistic can grow into the narcissistic parent role. And so I really do think that people can be narcissistic towards their children, but not narcissistic towards other people. They can look kind of, within reason, relatively normal and decent to friends, peers, co-workers, maybe even other family members. They might not be our favorite, but we might not see some of the nasty stuff that can happen when it's below the radar. So my point for this, and my point I really hope for all of my videos, maybe it doesn't always come across, maybe I don't always do the best job, but really I want to talk about this, not to throw people under the bus. I'm not looking to demonize a generation or demonize people who basically aren't very skilled parents. That's not my intention here. What I think the advantage of labeling and talking about this idea of narcissistic parenting is twofold. The first one is it gives language and legitimacy to people who have had narcissistic parents or still have narcissistic parents and they're struggling. I won't go into all of the mental and physical and emotional and relationship problems we can have when we have difficult, adverse narcissistic parents. But the list is long and it can last for a lifetime unless we do something about it. And so realizing that it happens, giving language to it, gives it legitimacy so people can then look for help and to be able to move past some of these problems and to be able to move forward. And my other reason why I think it's good to talk about narcissistic parenting is as a deterrent. So narcissists don't want to be found out. They're all about avoiding any more shame. And so the last thing that a narcissist is going to want to do is to be labeled as a narcissistic parent or a narcissist. They don't want that. And so if we can put the label out there and say, this is what it looks like and these are the kind of behaviors, then that gives, it's a deterrent, right? It's a deterrent for people to not abuse the parent-child role. And maybe I'm being super naive, but if there's a higher chance of being labeled as a narcissistic parent, then maybe they'll avoid it a bit more and they'll try not to do it. I think maybe that's pie in the sky thinking. I could well be out to lunch on that. So let me know what you think, and let me know what you think about it all. I'm just really interested in this idea from maybe a bit more of an academic idea, and I wish that it was something that we labeled in terms of healthcare and in our societies. So please let me know what you think. Do you think this is a reasonable point? Do you think that a person can be a narcissist in one relationship but not in another one? Do you think it's standard across all relationships that they have? Does it depend on the type of narcissist? Maybe this idea of the kind of the chameleon narcissist, the shifting narcissist, is a bit more covert than overt. I'd love to hear what you think. Please join the discussion. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you again for another Scapegoat Saturday. Take care and bye for now.